Welcome to Voices Carry, a podcast series hosted by Jim Gibutowski, CEO of Marketing Messages, a global voiceover services firm, and his wife, Janet Krause, a Boston-based startup CEO and former professor of entrepreneurship at Harvard Business School. Jim and Janet interrupt their life of marital bliss to discuss how professional voiceover plays a critical role in creating a brand-affirming customer experience for businesses, from pizza shops and auto dealers to multinational corporations with global call center systems featuring languages spoken around the world.
So, hey, Janet, we're here and we have our first guest today.
Yay! You mean we're not tired of each other after only 2 episodes, are we?
I think this has actually been a lot of fun. You know, as exciting as it's been and compelling as we are, I think we need to broaden our horizons a little bit. Do you remember the Aunt Mary from our first episode?
I remember her well. You get asked about everybody's Aunt Mary is going to be a voice talent for you, I know.
Right. And we were at cocktail party a few weeks back, and this keeps coming up as a recurring theme. Anyway, rather than talk about that, we want to get a real pro to provide some perspective. So we have invited Liz to join us.
Hey, Liz.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much for asking me.
So I remember your name because I listened to all the voices on Marketing Messages. And so, Jim, I'm just curious, how did you end up picking Liz to join us today?
We have a lot of really, really great voice talents, and Liz has been with us for a lot of years. She's reliable, she's professional, she's one of the most requested of the voice talents we have.
Ooh.
And it's good to have somebody with a great voice, but we needed somebody who really thinks deeply and seriously about this stuff. And I remember a few years back, I had a conversation with her in person, and I remember she had a lot of thoughtful perspectives on it. What did you like about her voice, Janet, when you heard her?
Well, when I listened, I found her to be like upbeat. Well, you're gonna have to prove this to me, Liz, once we actually
right,
hear
great.
you, right?
No pressure. No pressure at all.
I had this sense of like upbeat and like competent and knowledgeable and like just someone that you feel like you'd have like a really deep, but a deep conversation with. Like it wasn't one of those boppity voices. It was like really like meaty. I was looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful.
Well, you know, and the thing is, it's great that she sounds great, and I agree with that 100%. But I think it's just how she says things. You know, she knows how to say things in a certain context. And if you remember last time, we talked about minefields in call center applications. That was the subject.
Yep, I remember that. Yep.
And you know, we talked about everything that goes into a great recording. It's scripting, it's translation, it's audio editing. But at the end of the day, the person who's speaking is still the rock star, right? So it's important what you say, but it's important how you say it. So the subject of this episode is going to be vocal delivery.
Yeah, and I remember that you really emphasized, I began to understand that the voice in a call center application is really very different than the voice in sort of other kinds of voiceover work, which not everybody would necessarily know coming into this. I mean, it's not like voicing a radio commercial or an on-hold message where you're speaking for a while. You actually have to represent someone's brand from the moment you start speaking. And that's really, I thought that really piqued my interest. Like, how do you actually represent a brand through a voice? And it doesn't matter whether you're, you know, a small accounting firm or like a global manufacturing firm, you can actually take a voice and help it to bring to life a brand. And that first impression is really important for brands. The way we hear voices, you know, touches us in a very specific way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different dimensions of vocal delivery. So we're going to talk about that, but I just want to go over the topics we'll go over, and we'll jump into hearing from Liz. So we're going to talk about customer experience and branding, trends in vocal delivery, some process guidance for projects, specific techniques used by voice talents for call centers, and then the importance of customer interaction and feedback.
That's great. I can't wait to get started. Let's do it.
All right.
Yay. This is fun. I'm already interested.
Exactly.
In this,
I know. It's like, I never knew this whole field was so cool, but it really is.
It is.
So thanks for being with us, Liz. So let's start out with how we met. It was a It was at a trade show, right?
We did in person. Yes, we met at a trade show that I attended, and I realized that you were going to be there, and so I basically called you and said, "Hey, it's actually nice to put a face in a real, 3D person,"
Right.
because and this happens with a lot of us voice talent. Is we have clients that, I have clients. I've been in business on my own now for 15 years. There are clients I've never met. There are clients I've never actually, even, before pandemic, that I'd never actually seen even on Zoom or anything. And it's literally either on the phone or via email. And so whenever I get the chance to meet a client in person, I generally jump on it. And so it was one of those trade shows in the city, and I was living in Jersey at the time,
Right.
and I was like, oh, perfect! I can't not do this.
Right, right.
And it's great, and it actually adds that connection. It adds an extra level of interaction with clients, and talking about customer service. I mean, for me, since I run my own business as well, it's really important for me to make sure that my clients are happy with what I'm doing and what I'm producing, and to have that interaction is really vital for me as well, as whenever I can get it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that might be helpful, maybe if you can talk about why you believe organizations employ professional voice talents to begin with, and then we'll talk more about the vocal delivery stuff.
Well, we want them to.
Well, yeah, of course.
and we want them to. Well, see, the thing is, I think that the clients that do hire professionals realize that on a call center, on an IVR system, on an on-hold system, it really is the first impression that a user, that a caller gets, because there's no way that you're not going to get an automated system when you call somebody. There's always going to have to be a play, because that's just the way it is. There's nobody that answers the phone right away, unless it's a very small company. But even small companies now realize that the time that they would save to just, send somebody to the right person, to sales or tech support or accounting or billing or whatever, that is the first impression.
So what's so interesting to me now that you're describing sort of the work found you, or where, the clients that want to use your voice know who they are. And ever since Jim, I've been doing this for a while now, but when I first hear a call, any voice related to a brand, I'm asking myself, like, did this company make a good choice? Like, is this the voice I would expect this brand to have?
Sure.
So how is it that you said sometimes that personal interaction helps. How do you support, how do you think about getting into the experience of the brand? What work do you do to support your clients that way?
So there are a couple of different things that I do, especially for newer clients. When they get in touch with me, of course, I go to their website. That's one of the first things that I do, is I go to their website and I look at what their branding looks like. What, is it pinks and yellows and rainbows and unicorns, or is it more, muted tones and grays and beiges or blues, and because all of that, it's like, okay, that's sort of their
tells you something
their
about
sound
their
or their
attitude,
tone. It tells me a little bit of, absolutely, because you can guarantee that they have spent a lot of time on figuring out their website colors, their branding, their logo, they spend a lot of time. And I honestly, and I'm sure Jim has run into this as well, as a voice talent, we are one of the last pieces of the puzzle picked. And very often they don't really think about that much. A lot of times we are chosen because we sound like someone that they like, or they have an idea of, I kind of want somebody mid-range, or they know it when they hear it. A lot of times with the voice is they know it when they hear it.
Yep.
And so for me, what I do is I will look at their website, figuring out how the clients work, how they like to communicate, because my job is to communicate in the way that they want to be communicated with.
And I bet some of the people who are making this decision to choose you, it's more intuitive than it is like they could exactly tell you why. And I bet there are things that you know about the vocal delivery that help you to shape your voice, whether that's like emotion or pace
And yes, I think my tone, the sound of my voice, The sound of my voice is the sound of my voice,
Yep.
especially when it comes to professional stuff. In French, interestingly, I go a little bit higher than I do in my English, which is just a natural way of doing it. Je parle un peu plus haut comme ça en français. But it's an interesting. I had a thing happen where I was working at a job, and my mother at the time, who was still living, called me, and I happened to pick up the phone at the reception desk, and I always spoke French with my mom. And I hung up the phone, and the receptionist said, "You shouldn't yell at your mom that way." I'm like, I wasn't yelling at her. I was just having a conversation. So, it's just but anyway, but yes, and the tone of the script is informed also in the way the script is written. Mm-hmm. So whether it's more formal or informal.
So, one of the things we want to have our listeners kind of understand are the very, very specifically the elements of vocal delivery.
Okay.
And just as by way of backdrop, Marketing Messages has a framework called voice marketing, mm-hmm. right? And the central premise of voice marketing is what we've already been talking about, which is really matching all the elements of vocal delivery with the customer profile and the brand. We talk about style, emotion, pace, intonation, pronunciation. Mm-hmm. As far as a process for doing that, and I know you've spoken a little bit about this, but how do you match all of those different elements to what the client wants?
Very carefully. It is some of it is intuitive, just on my part. A lot of it comes from the script, honestly, and how it's written. Because, and also, obviously, or not obviously, maybe, the type of business that it is. I mean, my classic thing is I will not voice a message for an assisted living facility the same way I will for a Harley-Davidson dealership. It's just even if it is a professional delivery, right. It's going to have a different tone.
I mean, it has a very different. Who you're talking to, what the topic that you're talking about, the receiver right. is going to be listening and feeling different things when they show up.
Exactly. I mean, it's the end user. Yeah. And when I talk about the end user, I'm not talking about the client, the assisted living facility. You're talking about. I'm talking about the person that's calling in.
Sure.
The person that's calling in and wants to talk to their mom who's there. They're not going to want to have someone yelling at them in the phone. And that's the thing, is that with this type of work, literally, when you're studying voiceover, a lot of the coaches say, imagine that you're talking to one person. In this type of work, you literally are talking to one person. And they're they either have their earbuds in, or they're on their cell phone, or some still have their landline, but it's in their ear, literally in their ear. So you have to have, it's a very intimate way of presenting the script. So with an assisted living facility, it'll be calmer and nicer and
gentle and empathetic and warm, whereas
exactly.
Harley Davidson might be like exciting and like adventure and but let's get going.
Exactly. It's like, hey, come on down. We're having a barbecue this weekend. We're going to have a demo of all of our latest bikes. It's going to be great. Come on, it's going to be a fun time. And I do both of those.
Yeah.
So, and it's
I remember, and I may have gone over this in one of the previous episodes. We've had situations where different emotions have been required for the same client. So one example is somebody who's kind of in the drug space, right? And where, mm-hmm. In one sense, they have to sound empathetic when somebody's calling in, but if they're doing a drug trial and the client wants the subject to report back in consistently, they want to take a more stern tone and even make them feel guilty, right? Mm-hmm. So, I would imagine that has some implications in terms of how you might want to deliver.
Oh, sure. I mean, I've done collection, for collection agencies, and what's interesting with those is that you have the initial call. Hey, you may have missed a payment. We just want to remind you.
Yep.
The second call is, hey, you need to call us back right away. We need to figure out. And the third call is, hey, where's our money?
Yeah, right.
And I mean, I don't do many of those, but that's a classic example of sort of amping up the way that I, as the talent, have to get my client's message across to the end user.
That's great.
And
even just hearing you do that quickly, right off the cuff, you can just hear, sense, and like, right. I guess in some sense, we all have the ability to change our voices. It's that you have the ability to do it with consistency
on demand,
right? Like ours has to be kind of emotionally created, and yours is like an empathetic, like, this is what I need my voice to say. So it's just like you said, it's a talent, and it's
and it seems that it from what we've been seeing, and I think this is a kind of a good point where we can transition in a little bit into the trends that you're seeing, but in voice delivery. I've been involved, you've been involved in this a lot longer than I have, Liz. I came in end of 2012, and I remember a lot of our demos sounded like, hey, it's the radio guy, right? And it seems that things have, or it's his name, Don
LaFontaine. God bless him. I actually met him a few times. He was a lovely, lovely, lovely man. Just a really sweet. And in fact, one of my greatest things I was just loving is I have a picture of me and him and another voice talent that his wife took of the two of us when we were at an event. So yeah, I have that in my office. That's like cool. The coolest thing.
Is he the guy?
But no, he was
whatever that is.
Yes, exactly. He was the movie trailer. He created the movie trailer voice, and that was a real loss to our industry when he passed away. He was just a lovely man.
Since you've been at this a long time and you've been on both sides, and as Jim just said, some trends have been changing, I would be so curious, like, what does it sound like? What was your voice sound? Let's just pick a company like Harley Davidson. If it was more professional or a little bit more structured 10 years ago, and it's become a little bit more familiar today, like that, even those two words, like more professional or more familiar, like how does that little shift change?
Well, I think what happens is there are two things that have definitely changed in the industry today. Okay. One is things are much more conversational. All right. They're not as stilted. Yep. We don't want people to sound like a robot. Okay. We don't want the messages to sound like this. Okay. Now, AI is a whole, that's, something that's coming in. But the other thing that's happening is authenticity. And so when people are, for example, for Southern states, there are companies that want someone, if they're in Kentucky, they want to have somebody from Kentucky who's voicing. Now, if they're a local shop, if their branch is in Kentucky and they're a multinational corporation, they may not. But again, having that authenticity to the voice, again, stays on brand. If you're a Kentucky bourbon, wants a Kentucky voice. They just do. And it's because it adds something to that style. So in terms of what I've seen when I first started, there was much more of that announcer voice of, hey, we're open 9 to 5, come on down, we're at 395 Main Street and we're open 9 to 5 and this is the information. So the scripts were very cut and dry. Now, and yes, it happens more on the message on hold, but even on the IVRs, it's like instead of for sales, press 1, for technical support, press 2, it might be for Ashley in sales, press 1, for Jim in technical support, press 2. So there's more of that personalization in scripts than there used to be.
Yeah, I was just listening to a CVS one right now, just a minute before we got on, and I was thinking to myself, she really sounds like somebody that like I know, as opposed to that's the CVS voice. She sounded very authentic,
and she's a friend of mine, by the way. She does all of their stuff. She does their commercials.
Well, I like her, and I would like to be friends with her.
She's great. She's great, and she is. She's lovely. She's absolutely lovely.
And I think this is a good spot to kind of transition a little bit over to the actual project itself, right? So we try to orient people when we get a client for the first time in terms of how to prepare for the recording, what to put in the script, how to script it, where you put instructions and so forth. So, maybe a good place to start is for you, what's the element of a really, really good script, right? What makes your job easier when you get a script in a certain way?
Punctuation.
Really?
And I wish I were kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it. I believe it.
I wish I were kidding.
Do you mean like a period and a comma and
No periods, no cap. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Like basic English.
Okay, that would help. Yep.
Oh yeah. No, and again, I wish, and I know you guys do, you look at the scripts, but I get scripts from a lot of different places. And there are scripts that I get that I don't know where one sentence ends and another one begins. And I do have to go back and say, can someone just take a look at this? Because I'm not quite sure. A lot of times also what happens is I'll get, especially if I'm reading off like for a venue where they have concerts. And so it's bullet points. But when they send it to me, it's one big run-on paragraph. So I can't tell where one begins and one ends. I mean, basic things like that really do help in getting a script read correctly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
spelling,
because
punctuation, those types of things.
My our technical director, Dan Nelson, who you obviously know quite well.
Yes.
He's very much a stickler when he sees a script that has no punctuation. We'll submit a script for review with 50 prompts in it. And if it doesn't have a period, a question mark, or an ellipse at the end, kind of the ... We have a weekly process that we go through where if we see a mistake, we highlight it in our sales system. And we have a report where it just gets spit out. And every week we go through and say, here was the job that we did. Here was the scripting error that caused an issue. One of the biggest ones is this idea of an ellipse, right? Which is if you have a prompt that is going to be concatenated or joined with a system variable like an address or a currency amount, the voice talent's not going to know how to inflect it if the voice talent doesn't know that something's coming after it that's being supplied by the system, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely ellipses, but also, sometimes they will, I'll get a script which doesn't start with a cap, it doesn't start with a capital letter. So is that in the middle of a sentence, or is that truly the beginning of a sentence and I have to start it that way? Again, because it's all about intonation.
Right.
For example, a simple idea of generally you want, press 1 to be at the end of a prompt. But every once in a while, some clients want press 1 for sales, press 2 for technical support. Well, if they capitalize it, I'll say, okay, they want it press 1 with an ellipse. If they don't have an ellipse at the end, but they capitalized the P, I will assume that it's press 1 and then something else will come after it. If they actually want it at the end of a sentence, then it shouldn't be capitalized and it would be press 1, with the intonation going down.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that the script is how I get my information on how to inflect and how to pace my voice.
What about
it's all in the script.
But what's so interesting is the things that you're talking about are so simple. So
you'd think.
I know, right? Yeah. So clients out there who are listening, be thoughtful in your scripting. Use basic punctuation. What about a hard word or a hard phrase? Is there things that if they are really trying to get it to be said, is there things that they can do that get it clear to you how to say it?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, if they're familiar with diacritical markings, that would be lovely. Where you can, short A or long A and short E and long E. Again, most people don't know. The best way, if there are words that are technical words or names that are foreign names, record an MP3 on your phone and just send it.
That's easy. That's simple. Yeah.
That's the easiest way, is to record a note on your phone and send it.
Well, that way I don't have to explain what diacritical means.
Right.
I've never heard that word before. Diacritical. That is such a cool word.
Diacritical marking?
I am smarter now.
The diacritical markings
than I was literally 5 minutes
ago.
It's
all the little U's and
I know what they are too. I never knew that word either.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
This was worth a half hour.
Yeah. There you go. But that's, those are great if people know how to use them. And the other thing that's interesting is that an easy way is like if you have a 2-syllable word and it's 2 syllables and you want the accent to be on the end of the word. Okay, so the first three letters, the first part is in lowercase and the end is in uppercase. So like the word, the name Carmen, for example, CAR would be in caps, MEN would be in lowercase. So I know it's Carmen. But, if they want
Carmen,
if they want Carmen, like in French, there would be, you could say the word Carmen. The accent would be on the last syllable. So it would be CAR in lowercase and then MEN in uppercase. And then it would be Carmen.
It's a great point. The one thing that we sometimes struggle with, I think, when we see the script, and of course we go through the script before we send them to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we know to do some of these things.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I try to make it easy for you. We provide the pronouncer in English, but we don't, of course, we can't script in French, for example, or any of the other 85 plus languages that we do. And so I think it's really important to get the MP3 idea is fabulous. We try to do it. It's a little bit customer intensive at times, but it's
sure.
It never fails, right? It never fails. But how do you handle that?
Well, you ask. And I mean, how many times have I sent you back an email? How do you want this said in French?
Right.
I mean, the other thing is, especially with acronyms that create a word. Okay, do you want it said as a word or do you want it said as separate letters? And then if you have the same script in French, do you want the letters or the word said in English or in French?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it can get that dicey.
We get a lot of that. I mean, given the fact that our specialty really is call center, multi-language call center. And so, when we recruit for different languages and different voice talents, we look for a very specific skill set. And I guess I'd be interested in your perspective, and you've touched on a couple things here, but, how does vocal delivery differ specifically for call centers compared to, for example, an on-hold message or narrating a video, for example? What kind of skills muscles do you have to exercise that you wouldn't in another kind of application? Again,
what you're doing is you're talking to someone generally when they don't want to be talking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if someone calls a call center, it's sometimes, it's to order something, but most of the time, you're getting somebody in a place in their head, they don't want to be on the phone. And so what you need to realize as a voice talent is, one, you need to talk, in my experience, ever so slightly faster than you would on a normal IVR or message on hold, ever so slightly.
Interesting.
Because you want to get them to the place that they want to be as quickly as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get that. You want to feel a sense of urgency, like I'm working with you, girl. I'm going to get you there.
Right. Exactly. It's like, okay. And so it's not that I'm not speed reading, but I'm talking, it's ever so slightly a little bit quicker. And you also do want to have that calm, that calm place, because again, most of the time when someone's calling into that call center, they have a problem that they need somebody to fix. Mm-hmm. I'm the voice of a credit union in Pennsylvania, and I have a couple of friends that are actually members of this credit union, and they tell me, it's like, whenever I call and I have a problem that I need to try to get a hold of somebody, and I call it's like, when I hear your voice, I calm down, and that's what you want, because again, you want to keep your client's customer end user happy on the phone and not any more stressed out than they normally are.
I'm always interested, Liz, because, in IVR systems, you're saying short things. How do you do that? Especially if you have to stop your voice for an insert of something. Like, how do you practice to get the short phrasing sounding real?
Well, yeah. And that's all in the intonation, because you need to know whether it's going to be rising, neutral, or falling.
Yep.
And rising is, so let's say for sales, press 1, and you're going to insert sales and you're going to insert press 1. So for sales, for, you kind of go up a little bit. Sales, which would be neutral, press 1 would go down. So it's this like plateau effect in your voice. And what's interesting is I've had to do like the numbers, for example, like 0 to 1,000 in rising, neutral, and falling inflection. It's a lot easier to do 0 to 1,000 all in rising, and then all in neutral, and then all in falling. Doesn't always get to me that way, and they want them 1, 1, 1, and I have to do. Literally, this is what I do. You can't see it on the podcast. I'm moving my voice. I'm moving my finger up. I'm moving my finger over, and I'm moving my finger down. Yep, and
then to be able to do that consistently, like, and the same length.
That is something that for telephony, for this type of voiceover, generally, if a new client comes on board with me, one of the first questions they ask me is, are you going to be around for the next 5 years?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's the first thing, because and my pat answer is, unless I get hit by a bus, I'm going to be around for the next 5 years.
This is what I do.
Which I need to stop saying that, because I don't want to get hit by a bus.
Right, exactly.
But,
that's a little.
But they want consistency, and it is because what happens is, the other thing that I love about this part of the business is you record maybe an initial 100 prompts for the client, and then you're going to get updates. You want the updates. Sure. You want the updates to match the files that you recorded a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So you need to have that consistency in your voice and be able to do it in a consistent manner. I mean, generally for me, frankly, a lot of people ask, hey, how do you keep your levels the same? I don't move my levels on my mixer. And I know where I stand in my booth. And I'm at the same place in my booth, and my mixer doesn't change.
Yep.
And I know what my levels are.
Oh, and that matters for sure. I mean, the thing that we joked in one of the last episodes that our production department drinks vodka a lot when they get certain kinds of inconsistencies from voice talents. In fact, when we bring new voice talents aboard, which isn't often because we want to keep, kind of a high bar for everybody, we don't have any new voice talent record in a call center IVR system unless they've spent at least a year with us doing on hold or what I would call an auto attendance system, just basically call greetings and call distribution, where there's no system variables appended or there's any subtleties there. And it's for the reasons that you mentioned is we want to be able to see over time, even in a simple auto attendance system, that when something gets added, it sounds the same.
And I will tell you, and I have always said, Dan has bionic ears.
Oh yeah.
He's amazing. I moved from New Jersey to here where I'm now living in upstate New York. And he noticed right away. None of my other clients did. And then I upgraded my microphone. Again, went from a very good mic, but I went and I upgraded my microphone. And I, on purpose, didn't say anything. And I'm like, all right. And I send something and I get an email from Dan. Hey, did you switch your mic?
Yep.
And nobody, and my voice is consistent and my clients are very happy, because I always try to upgrade, and now I'm pretty much set. I'm not going to do anything anymore. But Dan is the only one that ever noticed any of that.
That's amazing.
Because he's awesome and has bionic ears.
That is a testament to Dan. And Dan is going to get angry at Jim in this podcast, because Jim, you keep leaning back in your chair. You're going,
oh yeah, that's true. Oh, he is going to be, he'll know for sure. He'll know. That's very funny. Here it is, Dan. I'm here. Here I am, Dan. I'm here for you. Really close to the microphone.
But the other thing with this type of VO, sorry about the truck.
Speaking of.
Speaking of, the other thing with this type of voiceover is most of the people that do corporate VO are not, quote unquote, the creatives that do commercial work or that do promo work, or, there's not the production value around the voice when it comes to call center work or IVR work or message on hold work.
Sure.
Which means that the voice has to be that much more consistent and that much clearer because there's nothing to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's some music behind it, but there's not, the voice is really the most important thing. You're getting information out to people and it needs to be clear. And so there's not all of the bells and whistles that happen in commercials and in promo and or trailers or, we got whiz bangs and you've got, with this type of work, you need to be able to show that you are consistent and that you are clear and that you can get the information out to the people that are listening to you.
So speaking of being consistent, does the customer, meaning, the Harley Davidson or the retirement home, do they give you guidance and do they give you feedback about your recordings? And does that help? And if so, how does it help?
So, so guidance, yes. Not always, but it's helpful. Yes. If they, and most of the time, if I get a script from a client, they will usually give me some idea in terms of pronunciation. And again, in terms of tone, if they are new, then I'll look at the script and I'll generally get a sense of what the tone should be. However, every once in a while, I will have a client, I'll do a job for them. And I had this happen, the other day where they felt that I was speaking just a little bit too fast, that I wasn't, that the first part of my script was good. And the other one was like, hey, can you slow that down just a little bit? Okay. But now I know, and I make a note in my CRM, in my database of, hey, this client likes things just a little bit slower. So the next time I get a job from them, I'll usually check. Yep. I'll check the notes that I have for that client and say, oh, right. And now I remember they wanted things ever so slightly a little bit slower. That's always helpful.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you are a professional, I think what I was really getting at is for clients who are listening to this, if you as the talent, had 1, 2, or 3 like words of advice of what would help you make sure from day one that you delivered, are there things you could say besides punctuation? Because we got that one.
I would definitely punctuation. If there's a specific tone that they want, they can use adjectives, empathetic, warm, or they could say, friendly or upbeat, and very often, I'll get from my clients, hey, they want a really upbeat delivery on this. This is fast paced, or they'll say, hey, this is more of a slower read. Can you tone it down just a little bit? Any information of what the client has in their head of how they'd like it to sound is always helpful. Absolutely.
Yep.
I think this is a good point to start wrapping things up a bit. I'd be interested in your perspective, Liz, on the future. How do you think voice talent and being a voice talent is going to change over the next few years?
I think and I hope that there will be much more opportunities for voice talent who are, basically not white males or white females. I know that's a hot topic, but it is a very important topic in voiceover right now, is the authenticity. And so, BIPOC talent are starting to get more opportunities. And I think that's something that is changing. I think this year and last year, there's been a real push to get that authenticity into the voiceover industry and getting a lot more opportunities for those talent. So that's changing. AI is not something we can ignore. It's here. But I also think that humans are not going to be completely displaced. There might be lower end jobs, lower end VOs that think they can't afford a professional VO and they'll go with AI. Okay. It can't be ignored. It's coming. And there are certain things that may happen. I don't think anybody who's doing audiobooks is going to have to worry about it. I don't think anybody who's doing e-learning either. I have voice talent friends of mine who got bumped from a job with a client of theirs for AI. And then the client came back and said, oh my God, our learners hated it. So again, intonation, and you don't want people falling asleep at the keyboards. With telephony as well, though, because again, it's the first line of contact with your end user, and it is your brand. So are they going to want a robotic voice as their brand?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
Maybe Apple will, maybe Microsoft will, they might, and if that's on brand, okay, but I don't know that the local furniture store who is part of the community and wants to be a part of the community is going to want an AI voice on their phone system. And I don't think that the multinational corporation is going to want it either.
No, I think you're right on that, and I think it's kind of amazing that we've kind of ended this episode the same way we started it, which was it's all about the brand, it's all about the vocal delivery, and there's no one like a professional voice talent who can do it. You did ask if there was going to be alcohol involved in this. Janet, do we have anything in the fridge at all that we might be able to offer? We can kind of toast the end of this too.
I don't know how, lots of the things have been figured out during this pandemic with virtual. I don't know that we've learned how to teleport food and beverage through the airwaves yet.
I'm still waiting. Sure. I'm still waiting for the Star Trek, transporter. Seriously.
I would love to beam you down something.
I wish we had.
Yay!
If we had a true male voice professional here, we could have William Shatner do something about beam me up, Scotty, or whatever. So Liz, with that, I thank you. You've brought a lot of really great insights into this discussion, and
thank you so much.
Certainly I would invite any of our listeners to reach out to us at marketingmessages.com, and we'll certainly address any things that you found intriguing, perhaps even contact Liz to see if she can bring some additional insights. So anything else, Janet, you want to add at all as we part?
No, it's been fun, Liz. I'm so glad you lived up to your everything about the voice I heard on Marketing Messages. You are that and more. I would like to be your friend too.
Yay.
Yay.
Yay, you are. Absolutely.
All right, folks. Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks again.